My mom and I flew to our home state, New Jersey to visit friends and family. At the time, my sister-in-law worked for a hotel chain and offered me her discount. To get the discount, all I had to do was activate a link that she had sent to my email before it expired at midnight. I got the email and went about our day, which was jam-packed with running all over the place to meet up with as many people as we could, leading up to a dinner at my stepmom's family's house. Dinner was great until my stepmom started pushing for us to stay the night. My mom's eyes were screaming, hell no, but at that point I had realized it was past 1 a.m. and we had missed the deadline to book the hotel. Against my better judgment, I lied and said it would have been a waste of money if we didn't check into our hotel room, knowing damn well that we didn't have a hotel room to check into, but I figured I could just book another one, no big deal. By the time we finally left, it was after 2 a.m. I pulled into a Wawa parking lot and tried finding an available hotel room nearby. To our surprise, we couldn't find a single one anywhere within an hour in any direction. The weird part was that it wasn't a holiday or a weekend. It was a random weeknight. The only place available was a motel near the shore. We were so exhausted and hadn't really slept since our plane landed the day before, so I went ahead and booked the room. At that point, we just needed a clean bed and somewhere to crash for the night. When we pulled up to the motel, I ran inside to check in, and the man behind the counter decided to upgrade me to the king suite right next to the office. I don't like that. Immediately, it set off a red flag. It's 2 a.m. in the off-season at the Jersey Shore, and nobody is that nice for the hell of it. When I went out to the car to grab the bags and told my mom we had been upgraded to a suite, I joked that there must be a peephole from the office to look in and watch us. We got into the room and alarm bells in my body from my head to my toes were ringing and screaming for us to get out of there. Not only was it visibly dirty, there was a stench that I don't even know how to describe. When I started looking around the room, I began to notice more and more things that screamed to get out while you still can. The arms of the chair were wrapped with electrical tape, as if someone had been taped to the chair and cut loose. There were stains and filth in the bed and on the sheets, the carpets, and the bathroom. My mom kept trying to reason with things like, let's just strip the bed and put our towels down. It's only a few hours. It's not clean, but we just need to get some sleep. Let's just try to get through the night. Something just wasn't sitting right with me, and then I noticed the side of the door facing the room had been chipped away, as if someone had tried breaking in. I Googled reviews and was horrified at what I found. Budget Inn and Suites in Wall, New Jersey. If you want another good read, check out the reviews. In one review, I read about a family who stayed in the exact room that we were currently in. Somehow they had gotten locked out of the room and the motel management was not helpful getting them back in. After hours of arguing and finally threatening to call the cops, the manager told their 8-year-old son to go back around and break in through the window because it didn't lock anyway. By the time the boy got to the door, the manager had chipped it open using a crowbar. The family was extremely upset and demanded a refund, but were refused. Ultimately, they valued their safety more than anything and wound up leaving. After reading this, it made sense why the front door was in the condition that it was, and it made me extremely nervous that it could be that easy for anyone to break in. My mom kept telling me I was overreacting because I was tired, but with every increasing minute, I was getting more and more and more anxious and fearful of what would happen if we stayed. I read her the review, and finally that was enough to convince her. Sure enough, when we pulled the blinds back, the top window was literally held up by electrical tape so that it didn't fall open. Needless to say, it didn't lock. We grabbed our bags and ran. We sat in the car silent and angry. I don't remember which one of us finally cracked and spoke, but my mom said she felt in her bones that if we didn't leave, we would have been dead before daylight. She said out loud what I had been thinking since the minute I stepped foot into that room. We drove another 40 minutes and tried 3 more hotels before we found one that had an available room. At this point, it was nearing 4 a.m. When we finally got to our hotel room door, I stopped dead in my tracks when I realized the number. 202. Our previous room was 102. 202, an exact level up, a second chance. Every hair on my body stood up. I finally laid in bed, safe, and tried to rest, but my mind was racing. Out of the corner of my right eye, I kept seeing shadows as if someone was popping in and out of my peripheral vision. I chalked it up to just being exhausted. Just as I started to fall asleep, I felt a weight in the bed, exactly as if someone laid down next to me, so much that I even felt an arm wrap around my waist. I shot up and turned the light on. My mom asked, "What did you feel?" I didn't answer because I didn't want to scare her, and I chalked it up to being delusionally tired at that point. I laid awake staring at the ceiling and trying to see past murky, blurry blotches obscuring my vision. I started having trouble breathing. Not choking or gasping, just shortness of breath. It wasn't like any panic attack I had ever experienced before, but eventually I fell asleep. The next day, I asked my mom why she asked what I felt instead of asking if I was okay, and she told me that about 5 minutes after she lay down, her ears started ringing, and it sounded like ambulances off in the distance. She dreamt that we were back at the motel, sleeping in bed, and someone had crawled through the window and laid in the bed with us. They murdered us in our sleep. We were stabbed and strangled. She watched me lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, choking in my own blood. Oh my God. I burst out into tears and told her everything I experienced while I was laying on the bed trying to fall asleep. The most bizarre thing of this whole experience was the deep sadness and regret I felt for lying to my stepmom, especially my dad, who would have been so confused about why we didn't just stay the night at her house. I literally felt grief for the death of my mom and myself. Believe it or not, there's more. My mom and I kept this experience a secret until about a year ago. We went to New Jersey to visit again, but this time arranged to stay with a friend. I had gone to dinner one night with my dad and he happened to bring up Deja vu. I asked him if he believed in Deja vu and what he thought it could really be. By this time we were back in the car and he was driving me back towards where I was staying. As he spoke about his belief in Deja vu, parallel timelines, and a matrix, he said to me, "You've been here before. Just look around you." In that very instant, everything felt like it was in slow motion. I happened to look to my right, out the passenger window, and guess what we were driving past? The fucking motel. There was 100 ways he could have driven to take me back to where I was staying, and any one of them would have been more direct than going the route past the motel. Also, what are the chances of us having that conversation and him saying that to me at that very moment? He didn't know anything about what happened to my mom and I that night. After a moment of shock and silence, I told him I knew what I was about to say was going to sound crazy, but I needed him to keep an open mind. My dad talks so much, he barely comes up for air sometimes. Maybe for the first time in my life, I told the entire story and he didn't say a word, he just listened. Afterwards, he gave me advice that I will never forget. He told me that intuition is the feeling you know will happen because it already has happened. Deja vu is a peek behind the curtain. You can call it a weird string of coincidences, intuition, deja vu, or something else, but I believe that my mom and I were murdered in that motel room on another timeline, and even though we escaped, we still experienced the trauma of it. That night, my mom and I were lucky to receive and read the signs that saved our lives.